Are you ready to learn the shocking truth about the largest and most mysterious disappearance of treasure in human history? Long before the first European ship appeared on the horizon of South America, the Inca Empire had amassed reserves of precious metals in such incredible quantities that it is difficult for modern people to even imagine.
But the most striking thing here is that gold was never a means of payment or a financial instrument for this great people.
It was considered the sweat of the sun and served exclusively as a sacred material for creating unique religious artifacts and dazzling temple decorations, with the floors and ceilings bathed in the precious metal. Tons of the purest refined gold reflected the sunlight in the high-altitude cities, turning entire squares into shining beacons, visible for many kilometers. It was a civilization literally bathed in wealth, which held only divine significance for them, but for the newcomers from across the ocean became the catalyst for the bloodiest madness in history. Be sure to watch this video all the way to the end, because today we're going to follow the trail of the lost caravans that forever changed the course of history.
You'll learn how the greatest gold hoard of antiquity, accumulated over centuries, vanished without a trace in the harsh Andes.
I'll tell you about secret tunnels, forgotten hiding places, and the final orders of the Supreme Incas, who chose to hide their sacred treasures deep within the earth rather than hand them over to the invaders. Where did the gold go? Gold capable of bringing down the entire European economy. And why can't it be found even with the help of satellites? The answers to these questions will take your breath away. Get ready for the most thrilling investigation. Let's begin. What if I told you that everything you believed about the riches of the Incas is a lie? For a long time, historians estimated the empire's reserves based only on the scraps that fell into the hands of European conquerors. The vast majority of precious metals never made it into the smelting furnaces of the arriving foreigners. The Incas controlled a vast territory with countless mines and workshops. For centuries, artisans crafted exquisitely detailed ritual objects for their rulers and priests. The process of extracting and processing metals was strictly subordinated to state needs and religious rituals. The artisans did not know the wheel or iron tools, creating masterpieces with stone hammers. Each piece traveled a long journey from the mountain mines to the temples of the capital, Cusco. The state provided the artisans with everything necessary for uninterrupted work for the benefit of the empire. Gold was called the offspring of the sun, and silver was considered the tears of the moon. These metals symbolized the ruler's divine power over all creation. The main temple of the capital, Corocancha, served as the central repository for these riches. The walls of this enormous structure were completely covered with heavy, perfectly shaped gold plates. In the inner courtyard was a full-scale garden, entirely cast from precious metals.
There were golden corn stalks and life-size statues of rulers.
This place demonstrated the absolute power of the empire and its ruler. Huge golden discs reflected the morning rays, blinding anyone who entered the temple grounds. Priests performed daily rituals among the glittering altars and massive bowls. The accumulation of treasures never ceased for a single day over the course of decades. Each new generation of rulers multiplied the legacy of their great predecessors. Gold was transported to the capital from all corners of the vast empire via a complex network of roads. Caravans of porters regularly delivered new shipments of ingots and finished goods. The accounting system was incredibly precise and based on the Quipu knot writing system. Not a single gram of precious metal could go missing without the knowledge of state inspectors. This entire colossal mechanism functioned flawlessly until the fateful moment of the clash of civilizations. The security of the treasuries was ensured not by high walls, but by the deep religious reverence of the subjects. The theft of sacred metal was considered not merely a crime, but an unthinkable sacrilege. Therefore, the repositories were often guarded only symbolically, without the deployment of large military garrisons.
No one within the empire could even conceive of encroaching upon the property of the gods.
Such complacency regarding physical security played a fateful role in the future. This campaign became a point of no return for the entire centuries-old Andean civilization. The ruler's confidence turned into a catastrophic mistake that altered the course of world history. The glitter of gold, meant to dazzle the enemy with grandeur, only fueled the conqueror's greed. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the self-confidence of the great rulers of antiquity. Share your thoughts in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Are you ready for the shocking truth about the fall of South America's most powerful empire? The meeting in Cajamarca was not a negotiation between equal rulers, but turned into a swift conquest. The foreigners exploited the element of surprise and weapons unknown to the locals. Loud gunshots and horsemen clad in metal sowed panic among the ruler's entourage. Atahualpa was taken captive before his army could take any coordinated action. The capture of the living god paralyzed the entire administrative system of the vast empire. The Incas had no instructions for such an unprecedented turn of events. The army came to a standstill, awaiting orders from their isolated leader. The conquerors gained an incredible advantage by controlling the empire's sole legitimate ruler. The balance of power shifted instantly from the Incas' absolute control to their complete vulnerability. While in captivity, Atahualpa quickly realized the true goal of his captors. He understood that they were not interested in political influence or new lands. The foreigners' sole motive was an insatiable thirst for shiny metal. The ruler proposed a deal that would secure his immediate freedom.
He promised to fill the room where he was being held with gold up to the ceiling.
The high priesthood of Cusco realized that the foreigners' appetites could not be satisfied with a single ransom. They understood that after Cajamarca, the conquerors would inevitably come for the rest of the treasures. To hand over sacred artifacts to be melted down into ordinary ingots was a true crime against the gods. In strict secrecy from the invaders, a massive operation to hide the main treasury began. The priests decided to conceal the riches that had not yet been sent as ransom. This operation became the greatest logistical achievement of the fading empire. Under cover of night, hundreds of trusted porters led caravans into the remote mountains. The routes were kept in the strictest secrecy, even from the highest military command. The treasures were hidden in natural karst caves and man-made mountain tunnels. Many ritual objects were permanently submerged in deep, high-altitude lakes. The bulk of the Incas' gold disappeared precisely during these tense months of waiting. The invaders, blinded by the approaching ransom, failed to notice the massive relocation of valuables in the south. The priests worked quickly and methodically, erasing any traces of their presence. The cave entrances were blocked with stones and camouflage to blend into the natural mountain landscape. Those who took part in the concealment took an oath of silence, which was unthinkable to break. Thus, the empire was artificially deprived of its main material symbol. The conquerors received only the portion of the riches that Atahualpa had set aside for his own salvation.
The main gold reserve became a phantom, out of reach of foreign hands.
The Incas lost the military clash but won the battle for their most sacred treasures. This move laid the foundation for legends that would stir the minds of explorers for centuries. The priest's plan worked flawlessly, forever concealing the true scale of the Inca economy. But the fate of the captive ruler remained in the hands of the treacherous invaders. Fulfilling the ransom conditions did not guarantee his return to the throne. In the next chapter, you will learn what catastrophic consequences the completion of the ransom collection led to. Consider what the fate of the world would have been if those hidden tons of gold had flooded the European economy of that time. What I am about to reveal is prohibited in 12 countries, as it concerns the illegal extraction of artifacts. The logistics of hiding thousands of tons of metal in mountainous terrain present a true engineering puzzle. The Incas did not use draft animals, so the entire cargo was carried exclusively on people's backs. Precious statues weighing hundreds of kilograms had to be carried along narrow trails above the abyss. Every expedition into the mountains required precise calculations of provisions and time for the arduous journey. The priests developed a complex system of false routes to disorient potential pursuers. Some caravans were deliberately sent into empty gorges, leaving visible traces of their passage. The actual hiding places were located in areas that were extremely difficult for an unprepared person to reach. Often, to create a storage site, engineers artificially altered the courses of underground rivers.
Water flooded the cave containing the gold, making it completely inaccessible from the outside.
Particular attention was paid to concealing the mummies of the great rulers of the past. Each such mummy had its own palace, servants, and a vast golden treasury. For the priests, The preservation of these sacred relics was more important than safeguarding the state's reserves. The mummies, along with their personal riches, were transported to remote secret hideouts. These hideouts became new, hidden centers of worship for the local population. Inca builders perfected the art of concealing caches to an absolute degree. Stone blocks were fitted together so tightly that not even a blade could slip between them. From the outside, the entrance was covered with a layer of turf, and local shrubs were planted to give it a natural appearance. Within just a few months, it became virtually impossible to spot such a hiding place by sight. The Andean wilderness quickly swallowed up any traces of human intervention in the rugged mountain terrain. Knowledge of the location of the main repositories was passed down strictly orally within a small circle of people. No detailed records were made in Quipu knot writing for security reasons. The keepers of these secrets lived in isolation and did not come into contact with representatives of the new authorities. With the passing of this generation of priests, the exact coordinates of many hiding places were lost forever. Only fragmentary legends and vague references to distinctive mountain peaks remained. The tension surrounding the ransom collected in Cajamarca reached its absolute peak. The room was filled with gold up to the agreed-upon mark, astonishing the Europeans. It took over a month to melt these unique works of art down into standard ingots. An entire era of jewelry craftsmanship vanished in the furnaces, erased for the sake of ease of transport. But even this incredible amount of metal did not bring the ruler the promised freedom. The conquerors realized that freeing Atahualpa would lead to an immediate uprising across the entire empire. Keeping him captive any longer became extremely dangerous due to rumors of the approaching Inca army. A cold and calculated decision was made to eliminate the state's leading figure. A formal court brought numerous absurd charges against the ruler to justify the sentence.
The empire lost its leader, paying the highest price in history for it.
Atahualpa's death set in motion an irreversible process of the collapse of state governance. Centralized authority crumbled, leaving the provinces to face a new, colossal threat on their own. The Incas were demoralized by the invaders' treachery and the loss of their strong connection to the gods. This tragic turn of events forever changed the fate of the entire American continent. If you enjoy our exploration of historical mysteries, be sure to like this video. Guess what happened next when the Europeans realized the true extent of the wealth they had missed out on? After eliminating Atahualpa, the conquerors entered the imperial capital of Cusco unopposed. They expected to find mountains of gold there, worth dozens of times the recent ransom. However, all they saw were the empty walls of temples that had been plundered by the Incas themselves. All that remained of the former grandeur of Coricancha were bare stones and fixtures torn out by the roots. Shock gave way to anger when the invaders realized the scale of the concealment operation carried out by the priests. It became clear that the most valuable and heavy artifacts had slipped right under their noses. Mass interrogations began of the residents remaining in the city and minor provincial officials. But ordinary people truly had no idea where the caravans carrying the temple treasures had gone. The system of secrecy had worked flawlessly, isolating the information at the highest levels of government. The mighty military machine ground to a halt, confronted by endless expanses in a harsh climate. Mountain passes and humid tropical forests proved more fearsome than any Inca army. The troops lost their bearings, suffering from hunger and tropical fevers in the green labyrinths. Nature guarded the secrets of the fallen empire far more reliably than the fortress walls of cities. Every new step deeper into the continent came at the cost of incredible effort and loss for the Europeans. Thus began the era of great explorations, which spanned the next 5 long centuries. Rumors of the Incas' hidden gold crossed the ocean and reached the royal courts of Europe. Greedy adventurers from all over the world flocked to South America in the hope of getting rich quick. Hundreds of fake maps were drawn up, supposedly indicating the exact path to the caches. The gold rush turned into a chronic affliction of the region, forever altering the fates of thousands of people. The Spanish crown attempted to bring the search process under its strict bureaucratic control. Special supervisory commissions were established to record every ounce of hidden metal found. The state demanded a fifth of any treasure found on the territory of the former empire. This predictably led to the mass concealment of information by the treasure hunters themselves. As a result, a large-scale black market for ancient artifacts emerged, which continues to thrive to this day. Attempts to find a strict logic in the actions of the ancient priests often led researchers to a dead end. The rational European mind could not comprehend the deep religious motivation of the Inca guardians. For them, gold was a sacred object that was better destroyed than subjected to gross desecration. In the next chapter, you will learn exactly how the harsh climate hid these treasures from prying eyes. Do you think it is fair that most of this cultural heritage has never been found? The territory where this historical drama unfolded is one of the most challenging landscapes on the planet. The Andes stretch for thousands of kilometers, creating a natural barrier between the ocean and the humid jungles. This mountain range is rife with deep canyons, sheer cliffs, and bottomless rocky chasms. Traveling through such terrain, even with a light load, requires immense physical endurance and experience. For transporting heavy cargo, this region seems utterly unsuitable and dangerous. However, the Incas were the true masters of these harsh and inaccessible mountain peaks. They built a unique network of roads that crisscrossed the entire empire like a circulatory system. Stone-paved trails wound over chasms and crossed raging rivers via suspension bridges. This infrastructure allowed for the rapid transport of goods to the most remote corners of the state. It was precisely this mastery of logistics that enabled the priests to carry out the large-scale concealment of the state treasury. High-altitude lakes became the ideal place for the permanent preservation of massive religious artifacts. The water in these vast bodies of water is crystal clear, yet bitterly cold even in the summer months. The depth of some lakes reaches tens of meters, reliably concealing objects cast to the bottom. Attempts to dive for gold under such conditions inevitably led to death from severe hypothermia. The conquerors could only watch helplessly at the water's surface, knowing that the treasures lay below. The geography of this mystery spans a vast area from modern-day Ecuador to the far north of Chile. This encompasses millions of square kilometers of extremely complex terrain, which has yet to be fully explored. Modern technologies such as satellite imagery only partially solve the problem of a global search. Dense vegetation and a thick layer of rock reliably conceal cavities and temperature anomalies. The mountains carefully guard their long silence, not revealing the secrets of a bygone era to strangers. Every mountainous region of the Andes has its own legend about a hidden treasure of gold. Locals pass these amazing stories down from generation to generation, constantly adding new details. For many poor people, the search for treasure has become the main purpose of life and the only way to earn a living. They spend months in the harsh mountains, studying old maps and listening intently to the stories of the elders. But most of these risky expeditions end in bitter disappointment and wasted effort. The geographical factor proved to be absolutely decisive in the long-term preservation of the great Inca heritage. If the destroyed empire had been located on a flat plain, the conquerors would have quickly discovered all the hiding places. But the vertical world of the Andes dictated its own harsh rules of the game, leveling the playing field for the opposing sides. The Europeans' technological advantage was shattered by the harsh reality of the impassable mountainous terrain. The Incas skillfully used the complex landscape as their primary weapon in defending their sacred sites. Today, these famous mountains attract not only treasure hunters, but also tourists from all over the world. People come here to experience the grandeur of a vanished civilization and feel the atmosphere of mystery. Every massive rock here is steeped in history, and the wind in the gorges seems to whisper ancient incantations. The mystery of Atahualpa's treasures has become an integral part of this region's cultural identity. And as long as the mountains stand firm in their place, the legend will live on, stirring the imagination of new seekers. What lies behind the beautiful picture painted by historical chronicles is full of despair and maniacal obsession. The realization that the main gold reserve had been lost drove the colonial authorities into a state of blind fury. Governors sent one armed detachment after another to the most remote corners of the former empire. These military expeditions had a clear order: to find the gold at any cost and deliver it to the capital. But the mountains met them with an icy chill and the absolute emptiness of long-plundered vaults. During this tense period, the mass forgery of documents and the creation of fake maps began. Adventurers sold schemes, supposedly drawn by Inca priests themselves, to gullible investors at exorbitant prices. These yellowed parchments were lavishly adorned with crosses, winding trails, and mysterious landmarks. People spent entire family fortunes on purchasing these papers and equipping expeditions to nowhere. The industry of grand deception flourished, feeding on fresh rumors and legends of untold riches. A true turning point in history was the mysterious story of the Spanish soldier Valverde, who suddenly became wealthy. According to persistent rumors, he married the daughter of an Inca priest who showed him the way to a mountain hideout. Valverde successfully descended from the mountain several times with a vast quantity of exquisitely crafted gold artifacts. Before his mysterious disappearance, he left a guidebook describing a complex route through the Longanetes Mountains. This document, known as the Derrotero de Valverde, became the most famous treasure map in history. Hundreds of expeditions desperately tried to follow the route indicated in the soldier's mysterious document. The landmarks in the handwritten text were extremely vague, mentioning a black lake and a mountain shaped like a sleeping woman. In the ever-changing mountain landscape, such simple landmarks could be found practically anywhere. For years, explorers wandered in circles, depleting their food supplies and losing their minds from severe altitude sickness. The Liangana Mountains quickly gained a notorious reputation as a deadly place that never lets its victims go. Expeditions into the jungle required a completely different level of financial preparation and complex logistics. Heavy armor and war horses were utterly useless in the dense thickets of the tropical forest. The parties moved slowly along winding rivers in canoes, suffering from malaria and constant attacks. Moisture quickly ruined their provisions, and tropical insects and diseases mercilessly decimated the ranks of the seekers. But the legend of the Golden City lured them forward, making them forget common sense forever. The hunt for treasure became not just a grueling process, but a way of thinking for entire generations. People were born and died with the sole dream of finding the coveted key to unlocking the great mystery of the Incas. This mirage shaped the region's economy, driving the exploration of new, inaccessible, and dangerous territories. Along the way, new full-flowing rivers were discovered, and mountain ranges and deep valleys were mapped. Paradoxically, greed actively drove the advancement of geographical science on a little-studied continent. The story of the hidden Inca gold has become a textbook example of the perfect historical mystery. It combines real historical facts, a vast geographical scope, and a complete lack of answers. Do you agree with the statement that the process of searching for treasure yields more discoveries than the treasures themselves? In the next chapter, you will learn exactly what obstacles stopped the explorers deep in the green jungle. How did the legend of the last stronghold of the Incas become South America's greatest unsolvable myth? The concept of the lost golden city did not emerge immediately, but was the result of a long evolution of rumors. As mountain caches remained undiscovered, the focus of attention shifted definitively to the Amazon. The name Paititi emerged, referring to a mythical city founded by surviving Inca priests deep in the jungle. According to legend, it was there that the bulk of the capital's treasures and sacred relics were moved. This city was described as a utopian settlement where houses were covered in gold leaf and streets were paved with silver. The legend of Paititi bears many similarities to the famous myth of El Dorado, but has entirely different roots. While the famous El Dorado was sought in the north of the continent, Paititi was believed to be located east of the high Andes. Rumors about this place were actively spread by local tribes wishing to lure colonizers far away from their lands. The archives contain detailed reports from missionaries who allegedly communicated with the inhabitants of the outskirts of this mysterious state. These old texts mention strict laws, an abundance of food, and an incredible amount of precious metals. A little-known chronicle by the Jesuit Andrés López, discovered in the 20th century, became an important document. It describes a large, beautiful city with a regular layout hidden behind impassable tropical swamps. López claimed that the city was densely populated by descendants of the Inca nobility, who had carefully preserved their ancient customs. This text served as a powerful impetus for organizing new expeditions to the eastern regions of Peru and Bolivia. Explorers equipped themselves with modern, precise navigation instruments, desperately hoping to unravel the mystery of the Jesuit letter. Modern scholars view the beautiful legend of Paititi with a healthy dose of academic skepticism. Building a large stone city in the harsh conditions of the Amazonian swamps is logistically extremely difficult and pointless. The Incas were unrivaled masters of mountain construction, but their technologies were completely unsuited for the sticky soils of the jungle. Most likely, the myth of Paititi is a vivid collective image of all the hopes and fears of that harsh era. It is a metaphor for the lost cultural grandeur of an empire that categorically refused to surrender completely. However, scientists are not rushing to completely rule out the theoretical possibility of hidden settlements. The jungle regularly yields archaeological surprises in the form of previously unknown large-scale geoglyphs and long earthen ramparts. The discovery of massive earthen structures in the western Amazon has forever changed our view of the region's population. It is quite possible that small, isolated groups of Incas did indeed head east and founded new hidden settlements. But these were hardly paved with gold. Rather, they were simple fortified shelters for survival. The legend of Paititi continues to live a life of its own, ignoring any rigorous scientific evidence. It actively inspires writers, filmmakers, and video game developers to create new, captivating works. The image of a golden city lost in the impenetrable jungle has firmly and permanently taken root in global pop culture. The romance of fearless pioneers attracts new enthusiasts willing to risk their lives for the sake of a dream. Commercial expeditions offer wealthy tourists the chance to follow the arduous routes of ancient treasure hunters. The mystery of Paititi remains unsolved, teetering on the fine line between historical fact and a beautiful fairy tale. The truth is likely safely hidden somewhere in between, awaiting its moment of triumph beneath the canopy of the rainforest. Each new large-scale expedition yields only fragments of a vast puzzle that cannot yet be fully assembled. The jungle is extremely reluctant to part with its secrets, faithfully guarding the eternal rest of the ancient builders. The story of the search continues, gradually shifting to a new, high-tech level of laser exploration. Century after century, the balance of power and the desperate struggle between man and nature tilted in favor of the boundless South American jungle. The 20th century brought new hope, armed with cutting-edge digital technologies and powerful financial backing. Helicopters took to the skies, and cartographers gained unrestricted access to precise aerial photographs of the entire region. It seemed that no ruined city could hide from the all-seeing electronic eye of the cameras. However, nature presented researchers with a new challenge, demonstrating a phenomenal ability for optical camouflage. The canopies of enormous tropical trees form a solid shield that completely conceals the geometry of the landscape. What looks like an ordinary hill in a flat photograph may, in reality, turn out to be an overgrown stone pyramid. Ground expeditions faced even greater problems when trying to physically verify the aerial survey data. Moving through the dense jungle at a speed of just 1 kilometer per day was considered a huge logistical achievement for the team. Equipment broke down due to 100% humidity, and radios stopped picking up vital signals. Major sponsors aggressively demanded immediate results, failing to understand the grueling nature of working in such conditions. Investors expected to see chests full of gold, but researchers brought back only fragments of ancient pottery. Gradually, funding for serious projects began to dry up, giving way to cheap television shows and productions. The scientific approach was replaced by the pursuit of quick, scandalous sensationalism to entertain an undemanding mass audience. True archaeology was pushed into the background in favor of flashy visuals and empty television intrigue. By the beginning of the 21st century, naive optimism regarding the imminent discovery of Paititi had finally faded in scientific circles. It became absolutely clear that traditional methods of field archaeology were powerless in the face of the scale of the Amazonian challenge. Researchers desperately needed a tool capable of literally seeing through the dense, meter-thick vegetation cover. And such a tool soon appeared, completely and permanently changing the rules of the game in tropical archaeology. We are talking about the cutting-edge technology of laser scanning of the Earth's surface, widely known in science as LiDAR. LiDAR is mounted on a small aircraft or drone and sends millions of short laser pulses downward. These optical pulses penetrate the foliage and reflect off the ground and hidden architectural features. A powerful computer processes the data and constructs a highly accurate 3D model of the terrain, completely free of vegetation. This technology has sparked a true revolution, allowing archaeologists to study vast areas remotely and safely. The jungle has finally and irrevocably lost its greatest advantage, its absolute visual impenetrability. The very first applications of LiDAR in Mesoamerica yielded fantastic results, revealing thousands of new structures of the Maya civilization. Inspired by this colossal success, scientists directed laser scanners toward the forested eastern slopes of the Andes. Expectations were incredibly high, as everyone hoped to see the clear rectangular outlines of the mythical Paititi. Preparations for the large-scale aerial scanning took several long years of bureaucratic approvals and equipment procurement. A completely new era of exploration was beginning, in which technology was expected to put an end to a centuries-old debate. The unsuccessful romantic searches of the past were left behind, giving way to precise science and digital geospatial analysis. Old, inaccurate maps and fantastical legends were set aside in favor of obtaining objective data on the terrain. The laser beam easily pierced the dense green armor of the jungle, illuminating secrets that had been securely hidden for hundreds of years. The results of the large-scale scan exceeded all expectations, but turned out to be completely different from what was originally anticipated. In the next chapter, we will examine in detail the turning point in the modern history of high-tech research in the Andes. The expeditions of 2019 marked the true culmination of the technological approach to South American archaeology. A team of international researchers successfully scanned remote, hidden valleys in the mountainous region of Cusco. The focus was on green areas that had traditionally been considered completely impassable and uninhabited. Processing the many terabytes of airborne laser scanning data took several months of intense work. When digital algorithms stripped the vegetation from the model, a striking geometric pattern emerged on the monitors. Instead of a vast mythical golden metropolis, researchers saw a complex, decentralized network of small settlements. These remote sites were connected by previously unknown sections of high-quality Inca stone roads. Distinct terraces for agriculture, circular house foundations, and the strict lines of irrigation canals were discovered. The scale of human intervention in the wild mountain landscape turned out to be colossal and deeply systematic. The Inca state infrastructure extended much further east than conservative official science had assumed. A ground-based research expedition sent to physically verify the LiDAR data fully confirmed the accuracy of the technology. Scientists found actual ruins, swallowed up by the jungle, featuring classic polygonal Inca stone masonry. The discovery irrefutably proved that the empire's territorial expansion into the deep jungle was successful and deliberate. These were not temporary forest camps for refugees, but fully fledged, fortified administrative centers on the border. The settlement system strictly controlled the trade routes between the highlands and the hot lowlands of the Amazon basin. It turned out that the far-sighted priests did not need to build a new golden city to save the empire's treasures. They already had a ready-made, reliable infrastructure in the most inaccessible eastern regions of the mountainous state. Caravans of porters could move safely along roads far beyond the reach of the conqueror's troops. A decentralized network of small mountain fortresses was far more reliable than a single large administrative center. Finding treasures evenly distributed across a multitude of small hiding places in the jungle became mathematically impossible. This revolutionary discovery fundamentally changed the way modern historians and tropical archaeologists think. The idea of a vast Paititi as a metropolis finally gave way to the concept of a ramified border defense network. The gold did not lie in a single huge deep cave. It had forever dissolved into the capillaries of the empire. The Incas' survival strategy proved far more cunning and effective than senseless direct armed conflict. They created a unique system that reliably protected their greatest legacy by dispersing resources as widely as possible. Modern high-tech expeditions did not find mountains of gold, but they did find something far more valuable to academic science. The logic and engineering genius of the collapsed South American civilization have been fully reconstructed. The Incas undeniably demonstrated an incredible ability to adapt to the most extreme conditions of the tropical environment. The construction of level terraces and canals in the jungle required colossal physical effort and incredibly precise calculations. This infrastructure could easily provide food for thousands of people who had safely taken refuge from outsiders. A turning point in new research has finally closed the chapter on the romantic quest for the legendary City of Gold. A long era of systematic academic study of the Incas' frontier outposts and complex logistical networks has begun. Every new site discovered on the digital map adds important details to the overall picture of the Great Retreat. Researchers finally realized that the real treasure lies in the ruins themselves and the knowledge embedded within them. Cutting-edge technology allowed us to view history without the blinding glare of lost precious metals. It became absolutely clear that the old Spanish chronicles described only a small, central part of the vast empire. The Europeans never fully grasped the true geographical scale and structure of the country they had conquered. Their strict control was limited to only the major cities and the main high-altitude transportation routes. The periphery continued to live by its own laws for a long time, safely sheltered by mountains and dense forests. It was there that living fragments of a great culture were preserved, historically immune to complete destruction. Modern archaeology continues to methodically and meticulously decipher the data from large-scale LiDAR surveys. Decades of arduous fieldwork lie ahead for scientists as they physically verify every discovered site. The detective story of Inca gold is gradually and irrevocably transforming into a rigorous academic scientific discipline. Sensational headlines are giving way to routine scientific analysis of ceramics, architectural layouts, and food remains. But it is precisely this approach that allows us to restore the authentic voice of a civilization whose history was forcibly interrupted. Discoveries in recent years have definitively and unequivocally debunked the myth of the backwardness of the indigenous peoples of the New World. The level of social organization and complex spatial planning frankly astounds modern specialists with narrow fields of expertise. Gold was merely a beautiful external attribute of this complex and highly developed state administrative system. The real tragedy lies not in the financial loss of the metal, but in the destruction of this unique social mechanism. In the concluding chapter, we will draw a definitive conclusion regarding the centuries-long history of the Incas' riches, which have vanished forever. The conclusion of this long story is entirely devoid of cinematic triumph and the dazzling brilliance of discovered treasures. The cold reality is that a vast amount of Inca gold has been lost absolutely and irrevocably. Part of it was crudely melted down by the conquerors, forever losing its true cultural and historical value. The remaining larger portion dissolved into icy mountain lakes, collapsed caves, and the impenetrable Amazonian jungle. Nature has reliably concealed these artifacts, permanently reintegrating them back into the planet's geological environment. The gold has safely returned to where it was taken from through the hard labor of thousands of nameless artisans of the empire. For the modern, rational world, these treasures have only the status of a myth that stimulates the region's tourism industry. No modern global economy can lay claim to this hidden, colossal wealth of the past. Paradoxically, the priest's act of forced concealment became the only reliable way to preserve the sanctity of these objects. The metal was not defiled by remelting and remained forever an inviolable symbol of worship of the mighty sun god. The escalation of the brutal conflict of the 16th century revealed how fundamentally differently civilizations value material goods. For Europeans, heavy gold was a universal equivalent of power, a convenient means of payment, and the purpose of life. For the Incas, it was merely a beautiful, malleable material for expressing sincere religious reverence. This fatal cultural misunderstanding predictably led to the complete collapse of one side in the inevitable clash. The Incas were physically unable to buy their freedom with something that, in the eyes of their enemy, was worth far more than human lives. The destruction of Atahualpa's great empire became a humanitarian catastrophe of continental proportions with long-term consequences. A highly complex and unique administrative system, capable of reliably providing food for millions of people, was destroyed. The magnificent paved roads fell into complete disrepair, and the vast agricultural terraces became overgrown with wild grass. The intellectual achievements of the priests and engineers were completely erased, giving way to a completely foreign colonial culture. The change in state power brought the region centuries of brutal exploitation and forced oblivion of its own roots. The search for mythical treasures has inflicted colossal damage on this region, quite comparable to the conquest itself. The greed of treasure hunters has ruthlessly wiped hundreds of priceless, unique architectural and historical monuments from the face of the earth. The black market for ancient artifacts continues to fuel the barbaric destruction of the little that miraculously remains. An obsession with shiny yellow metal has deprived humanity of a unique opportunity to fully study this extraordinary civilization. In the pursuit of a beautiful, glittering illusion, we have permanently lost the chance to understand the very essence of Andean society. The scale of cultural losses cannot be measured in modern financial terms or converted into tons of metal. We have irrevocably lost a vast body of knowledge about how to adapt to the extreme, harsh conditions of the highlands. The wisdom of the ancient Incas, embodied in their unique architecture and agriculture, was ruthlessly discarded. Only now, faced with global climate challenges, is modern science beginning to appreciate this forgotten expertise. The engineering of the ancient Andean peoples now offers ready-made solutions that are highly relevant to our modern era. The story of the hidden gold is a harsh lesson about the cost of civilization's destructive blindness and greed. A vast empire collapsed not because it was militarily weak, but because it encountered an incomprehensible logic. The catastrophe of the conquest undeniably demonstrated that advanced technology does not guarantee the moral development of society. The victors obtained the coveted metal, but globally failed to preserve the cultural diversity of our planet. This sobering conclusion makes the history of the South American conquest one of the darkest chapters of humanity's past. Today, the rugged Andes mountains tower over the southern continent in their eternal, absolute, silent grandeur. They reliably guard their secrets, utterly indifferent to the changing eras, technologies, and human generations. Perhaps, somewhere in a deep, flooded cave, a golden statue of the great Inca ruler still stands. But its accidental discovery will not bring a lost civilization back to life or correct the fatal mistakes of the past. The true treasure of the ancient Incas is the memory of them, which we are duty-bound to carefully preserve for the future. New high-tech expeditions continue their painstaking work, but their goals now lie exclusively in the scientific realm. Archaeologists seek to understand how ordinary working people lived, how cities were built, and how the state economy functioned. The dazzling golden glow has given way to a deep, respectful study of the daily life of a unique ancient people. This academic approach allows us to truly and honestly repay our debt to the forgotten empire and its brilliant creators. Knowledge has become a new priceless gold, one that is absolutely impossible to steal or crudely melt down into ingots. As we conclude this detailed historical analysis, we clearly understand the true scale of the global tragedy that unfolded. The legend of the hidden treasures will live on, but it must no longer obscure the real, dramatic history. We have traced in detail the path from unimaginable grandeur through desperate resistance to complete state collapse. This journey teaches us to sincerely value vanished cultures for their uniqueness, not for their material wealth. The Incas have passed into eternity, leaving behind the greatest mystery, one that will take a very long time to unravel. The story of the Inca gold is not merely a tale of a hidden treasure. It is a chronicle of the clash between two irreconcilable worlds. It vividly demonstrates how completely different value systems can lead to misunderstanding and global catastrophe. We have seen that the true scale of this drama is measured not in tons of yellow metal, but in the loss of an entire civilization. Do you think the priests' decision to hide their sacred objects forever, depriving the world of the chance to see them, was justified? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new research.